Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
It's my pleasure to present Gok Wong here, who is going to give a talk about probabilistic spatial modeling of reverberant audio applied to source separation. He took his bachelor's degree in his native Vietnam, took his master's degree in Korea, and is going to finish his PhD in India and France. So it's a long and interesting part of doing research, most of it in the area of audio signal processing. So without further ado, we have the floor.
Okay, yes, thank you for the introduction. And good morning, everyone. So first, I briefly again tell you a bit about my background. I'm Ngọc Dương. I'm a Vietnamese. So for 4.5 years, I took bachelor degrees in electrical engineering in Post and Telecommunication Institute in Vietnam. And then I have almost 1.5 years working as a system engineer in industries, mainly for the Polycom video conferencing products like audio and sound visual. And then for 2 years, I moved to South Korea to pursue the master degrees, also in electrical engineering, and mainly focused on signal processing. And after getting the degrees, I had 1.5 years working as a research engineer in the immersive company. Also, that company is focused on sound and speed technology, which transfer to the more bigger industry. And then after finish, not really finished, but then I get the funding for the PhD, and then I moved to France. This is France National Research Institute in Computer Science and Control, it's India, to pursue my PhD up to now. And my defense will be in October this year, so still 4 months. So it's exactly 3 years PhD. Okay, that is briefly in my background. Okay, so today I'm very happy to present my PhD work, probabilistic space model for reverberant and diffuse sources applied to audio source separation. Okay, so please feel free to interrupt me at any time for question or comments. Okay, here we go. The problem we are looking at is in a cocktail party effect, where we have many sound sources mixed together in a meeting room, for instance, or in a party room, which prevents people from understanding. For instance, here is a real recording in a meeting room I recorded in India.
Everyone, I'm glad to be here attending the demonstration from audio source separation.
Okay. He's the voice of the director of India. So you will feel that it's very difficult to understand, and especially for the acoustic, for the ASR, the recognizer to recognize the talk with a lot of background noise and interference like that. So our goal is to separate the sources from the recorded signal, which is mixture. And this problem is known as blend sort separation. It's BSS. And BSS has lots of practical application. For instance, for hearing aid system, for speed recognition, which is very familiar with you, and also for like robotic or music information retrieval. In this community, where people try to separate the different components like drum or harmonies or pitch component to do some music information retrieval tasks. So, considering the recording environment, in reality, we have 2 types of environment. One is anechoic, and the other one is reverberant. What are they? The anechoic environment comes from the perfect studio like this, or in the outdoor recording, where the reverberant environment comes from a meeting room or the chamber. For instance, if you record a mixture in the anechoic environment, you will hear quite clear sound like this.
Among them are canvases by a young artist. Building from the ground up is very costly. Next year we'll see several more exhibitions.
So male and female voice, you can agree. But if you do the same thing in a chamber with a lot of reverberation, what you will hear is this.
Among them are canvases by a young artist. Building from the ground up is very costly. Next year we'll see several more exhibitions.
Hear a lot of echo, and you feel that this one is actually very difficult to process this. And why you have such kind of differences? Because in an anechoic environment, you only record the direct sound path from the source to the microphone without any reflection. While in the reverberation room, you have a lot of sound reflection from the source to the microphone. So this is a nice picture from the cafeteria in India. So as you hear the sounds, and you see from here, it's very difficult to model exactly the acoustic path from the source to the microphone in a reverberation environment. And the source separation here remain very challenging, while a state-of-the-art approach provide already some good results in case of anechoic environment. That's why in my PhD work, I focus more on the modeling of reverberation environment, which target more practical application. Okay. Now, if we look at some state-of-the-art general approach, there's two kinds of information we can exploit. The first one is to model and exploit the spatial information, that is looking at the spatial position and location of the sources. And another one is to model and exploit the spectral cues, which is more related to the spectral information of the sources. More detail, what are they? Spatial, the simplest one of spatial cues you can imagine is the phase and intensity differences. For instance, you look at the anechoic recording environment, and if the source is here, which is closer to the microphone X1, so the recorded signal X1 will be larger than X2, so you have a very simple proportional amplitude between X1 and X2 like that. But if the source moves to the position B, which is closer to the microphone X1, so you have the spectral cue now is the blue 1B, so that X2 is larger than X1. So this is very simple. It gives you the basic idea of the spatial cues. And for the spectral cues, you can exploit, for instance, like if you look at the spectrum of speech, it can be exploit the harmonicity, the smoothness. For instance, the spectrum here is very smooth over the frequency range. And it is sparsity, because here a lot of time frequency point, the coefficient is close to 0. And we look at the state-of-the-art approach for source separation. We found that there is much work on spectral cues that is based on statistical model like GMM, HMM, or non-negative matrix factorization, for instance. And there is actually very little work on spatial cues, and most of them are based on the deterministic model, for instance, in the anechoic recording. And the deterministically model the source position by the phase and intensity differences, which are far from the actual characteristic of the reverberation environment, and also for the diffuse background noise, where you cannot model deterministically the spatial information of the sources. So for our PhD, looking at that problem, we have switched from the deterministic model to probabilistic model framework for spatial cues. That is our main contribution. And then we design a general architecture for model parameter estimation and source separation. And then we propose several probabilistic prior over the spatial position of the sources or the spectral information of the sources. And we demonstrate the potential of the proposed framework in various practical settings, which I will show later on in the simulation. But here is summarized of the contribution, and I will address all these problems later on. Okay, so given that very general ideas and overview, So here will be the contents of my presentation. In the next part, I will focus on the general frameworks and parameterization, where I present our proposed general Gaussian modeling framework, the spatial covariant parameterization, and the source separation architecture designed for a general case. And then in the next part, I move to the center of the problem is how to estimate the model parameter. Right? We have framework, we have parameterization, but it's very important that we must estimate the model parameter in order to perform our work. And then I will present several probabilities prior in order to have enhanced source separation. And finally, I will come with some conclusion. Okay, so now we look at the problem in a more mathematical way. We have to formulate it, right? So if you have original sources, let's denote by h of j, where j is the source indexes in a party room. And what you observe as a microphone is not Sj itself, right? It is a recorded signal called Cj, and Cj is called source images. It means that it's a contribution of the sources as a microphone. And the purpose of source separation is that given the observed mixture here, you will need to estimate the source images Cj. And since we have a mixture of several sources, so what you really observe as a microphone array is a mixture is called x of t. It's an I by 1 vector where I is number of microphone, and xt will be the sum of Cj. J over 1 to the total number of sources. Okay, so now the purpose is given xj, you estimate the Cj. Okay, so let me emphasize that we are not targeting estimating the original sources, but we try to estimate the source images. Okay, so for state-of-the-art modeling framework, most approaches use a deterministic model for a spatial Q, which relies on the two main assumptions. The first assumption people make is a point source assumption, where the acoustic path from the source microphone is modeled by the missing vector h of j. So what you observe at the microphone Cj will be the convolution of the original sources with the missing vector h of j. And then here is a convolution in time domain. And if you assume that the windowing length is much larger than the actual filter length of Sj, you have a narrowband approximation where the convolution in time domain is approximated by the complex value multiplication in the frequency domain. So given those two basic assumptions, most state-of-the-art approach view their source separation system. So we see that in practice, these two equations do not hold due to a couple of reasons. For instance, due to the non-stationary of Sj. So for instance, when I talk, I'm not straightforward like this. Sometimes I move ahead. So you cannot model by a deterministic or fixed missing vector h of j. And also because of diffuse reverberation or diffuse sources, you have a very diffuse, very lots of reverberation. So modeling by a single missing vector may not enough. So for that reason, we switch to a probabilistic framework, and here it is. So in our proposed framework, we propose to model the source images Cj as a zero mean Gaussian random variable with the covariant matrix is sigma j. Okay, and here is a form of probability function for Gaussian. It's simple. Let me emphasize a bit why we use Gaussian modeling here. For instance, in source separation, many people use a Laplacian distribution for the sources or something, but instead of that, we use Gaussian here. There's a couple of reasons for that. Because first, if we consider the physical acoustic, so the reverberation is generally modeled as Gaussian. It's in the acoustical point of view. And it is easy to handle the computation. So if later on I will show with the Gaussian modeling, we result in a closed form update for the parameter estimation, which is good. And okay, we saw that of course it worked. So this is a very important point. Okay. So furthermore, now what you have is this one. This is you have zero mean already, and you have unknown covariance sigma j. And furthermore, in our framework, we factorize sigma j by the product of two parameters, Vj and Aj, where Vj is a time varying source variances which will encode the spectral temporal power of the sources. So if you switch and it takes some time frequency point, so Vj will modeling the spectral temporal power. And Aj is actually, we call it a spatial covariant matrices, which will encode the spatial information of the sources. What we refer to spatial information, it will include the spatial direction of the sources and the reverberation in the loop. So all the spatial information of the sources is encoded here, and all the spectral information of the sources, for instance, it can be modeled by GNM, SNM, or something, is encoded by Vj. So you separate by two components, and all of these is encoded in the spatial covariant, in a covariant matrix sigma j.
Could you go back to the previous slide?
Okay, yeah.
So the dimension of the vector here is just frequency?
Vector here, C?
I mean, you have N and F. When you look at
okay.
the covariance matrix,
yeah.
You're looking at frequency is the dimension of the matrix?
No, the dimension of the matrix is a number of microphones. So if you have two microphones, you have 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, so you have a C here is a vector of the, let's say I have I microphone. So C is a vector of I by 1, right? So you have one source here. What you observe at the I microphone is a vector I by 1. So we call C
that all frequencies are, one frequency is independent of the next one, the adjacent one, right?
No, not really. So here we model for each time frequency point independently.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We're making the assumption that what happens at this frequency happens at the next frequency. It's independent.
Sigma j's are separated for each frequency bin and not related to each other.
Yeah, sure. That is a general assumption, but later on when I come back, I will make a less strict assumption where I can assume some dependencies between time frequency point. But at this time for a general framework, let me assume first that it is independent, and let me model first for each time frequency point by this one. Okay. So again, V will be the scalar, and R will be I by I, a square matrix, right? Where I is number of microphone. So if you have stereo case, you have a 2 by 2 microphone for each time frequency point and for each sources J. Is that clear or something? Okay. Okay, and in most of the following, we will more assume that Aj is time invariant. So we will not have a time here. The reason we assume that is, for instance, now we don't deal with some very challenging case for a moving source. So we assume small source movement like this or fixed position. So we assume that Aj, modeling the spatial information, is time invariant. But also, let me come back to time varying case later in my presentation. But at this point, okay, for that. So this assumption is also made by most state-of-the-art approach, where the spatial location of the sources is modeled by the missing vector, which is time invariance. Okay. Okay, let me show you here, for instance. They also model the spatial information by time invariant. S depends on F. So now we make the same things like this one. Okay. So now, as I said before, our work is mainly focused on modeling the spatial cues. It means that we focus on the modeling for Aj, which is our focus. And in the next slide, I will present the parameterization for Aj. Okay, so now again, look at the state of the approach for Aj. In the anechoic recording, where there is no reverberation, so Aj can be computed directly from the missing vector, right? So, for instance, if in the anechoic missing environment, if you know the source and the microphone position, so the knowledge from the room acoustic will allow you to compute directly the missing vector from the source to the microphone like this, where ania here is, I refer to the anechoic missing environment. So if you compute Aj ania like this one, so the covariant matrix Aj can be computed like the product of H and H Hermitian. That is the simplest case of the anechoic, and why I refer to the rank 1 here, because this is a product of two vectors, so the matrix is rank 1 matrix, right? Okay, if we look at the popular parameterization based on the narrowband approximation I presented before, it means that we have Cj approximated by the product of Sj and the original sources. So now if you compute the covariant matrix of Cj, so you have sigma j will be the expectation of Cj and Cj8, and you will result in this form. Why this part is scalar and it's a Vj, it encodes the spatial temporal information of the sources, and the spatial covariant matrix Aj can be computed by Sj, Sjs, and again it will be the rank 1 matrix, right? So what I say in this slide is that whatever you consider the anechoic recording environment or a reverberant environment, the state of the parameterization for Aj is the rank 1 matrix in both cases. Okay. So what we do is that we don't want the rank 1 matrix, we want more a full rank matrix, which provide more free parameter to better model the reverberation. So we look at what we call here is a full rank direct plus diffuse parameterization, where we exploit the knowledge from the theory of room acoustic. Okay, this model is partly new because it is it was considered in the context of source localization before, but this is the first time we look at it in the context of source separation. Okay, so if you assume that the direct path from the source to the microphone and the reverberation is uncorrelated, so the covariant will be the sum of the covariant of the direct path, which is computed by here, right, by the missing vector, and the covariant of the diffuse reverberation path. Okay, so yeah, the underlying assumption is that the direct path and the reverberation path is uncorrelated, where Sj of ania is computed before. So if you look at state of the art, so state of the art modeling is this one. So now we look at a full rank parameterization where we add here some contribution of the reverberation. Okay.
I have a question here about your assumptions. I mean, like if we go back to the previous slide, like so clearly in the lower equation, right? Some of your channel characteristics are now being captured in the covariance only in expectation, right? Like you're basically taking statistics over the expectation of the inner product of signals. Now, that's going to lose something, right? It's not the entire actual channel characteristics. Some characteristics are captured in expectation. So my question is that when you go to the next slide and you're saying that, like, okay, well now we're going to open up this matrix to be full rank, the covariance matrix to be full rank. Do you have some intuitions behind why covariance is a good means of capturing the reverberation channel characteristics? Because it's not the 100%, right? I mean, it's capturing it in expectation. What do you lose? What do you gain by that representation?
Okay, so yeah, what I said before is that for state of jazz, most approach like deterministic model for spatial information by the mixing factor. So if you apply directly such kind of deterministic model in our framework, so for Gaussian modeling framework, this one, it is our proposed modeling framework. And if you bring directly the state of jazz parameterization,
yeah,
so you will get the rank one. Yeah. Okay.
But I get that. But what I'm saying is that, like, you know, here you're saying that you're going to expand that by using full rank, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's still this question of, you know, why is the covariance structure the right way to represent reverberation? Is there enough information there in the covariance to really tell you about what the reverberant channel is?
I guess the question is it still Gaussian or not?
Yeah. Like
If it is, then that's probably fine. If it is, but maybe it isn't.
I mean, I'm also wondering about, like, you know, what's being lost when you turn this into an expectation quantity over.
But if it is Gaussian, then that you're just maybe
okay.
You should not be adding that term. Maybe it's some other combination.
That's right.
But it may not be Gaussian.
Yes.
We don't know.
Yes.
Okay, I will demonstrate, as I understand you, your question is why we need the full rank and why we need to add more parameterization in the covariant matches.
That's not really my question, but it's okay. I can ask you later too. It's all right. I'm really. So I'll just say it again, but you don't need to necessarily answer right now. Maybe it'll become clear in your talk. My question is more what Alex was saying is that is the Gaussian a good way? I mean, is the Gaussian approximation a good approximation for what's actually happening in the channel?
Okay, yeah, I would not say Gaussian is the best way. It's a good way, but yeah, as I point out, several reasons why we consider Gaussian in previous slide. Of course, you can consider another ones, for instance, Laplace or something. But it may be more difficult for you to estimate parameter later on or something. Or I haven't tested to be in this.
My point is that, like, if it turns out that it's not very Gaussian, then adding more parameters to a Gaussian representation won't necessarily help you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a strong argument for why it is a Gaussian,
okay, yeah. Now
that's
but for sure that for physical acoustic, if you look at the acoustic book, where most people in physical acoustic community will model the reverberation as a Gaussian. I mean, they're not modeling both as a Gaussian. I mean, if you consider the direct path, so it's okay, it's not Gaussian. But for diffuse reverberation path, so they really model is a Gaussian. So yeah, that is also one of the reasons we consider. Yeah.
There is a stage of distinct reflections from the walls when the speech signal distribution basically moves from the sharp parallel pulsing towards more and more and more Gaussian, and as the tail at the end is completely Gaussian, it's a sum of pretty much infinite number of reflections.
I see. Mm-hmm.
But there is some period between the direct path and the tail when it kind of gradually goes from the sharper distribution, and this is what actually is missing there, right?
Yeah. Sorry for that. For example, if you look at the modeling for the original source itself, for the okay, let me come back to this one. If you look at the modeling for the source itself here, it's obviously not Gaussian. It's more like Laplace or something. But now you're looking at the modeling for its image to the microphone. So there's a lot of privation. So there should be some less sharper as Ivan mentioned. Okay. 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 Yes. Now we stop here, and this model have been considered in the context of source localization in 2003 for the first paper I saw. Yeah. But now we bring this one in the context of source separation, and we see how it performs in this context.
So the second matrix?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, if this assumption is satisfied, and if you know the geometry setting, you know everything, so the knowledge from the room acoustic will allow you to compute omega and sigma directly from the room acoustic. For instance, if the room is rectangular, If you know the reflection coefficient, it means that you will know the reflection time, and you know the area, something, so you will compute the proportion between the reversion and the research part. And it's very nice that this covariant matrix here is a kind of sinc function. So yeah, it is proved already. So it is kind of deterministic. If you know everything, you have this model. Okay.
So the second, the omega thing is derived in 1954 paper. I can find it, I believe. Where do you get the second? The second, yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
It's also from the textbook of
computer.
Yeah, it's a very old textbook, like 60s or something. It's proved already. And this equation is also written, it's my mistake, I should mention some reference here. In Markowal filter in beamforming, I think.
I think one of the Sabina's paper is,
yeah.
is the second one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I remember Markowal also used this model for beamforming.
True, but that's an earlier paper. 1954 is the publication of that sinus x under x, the dependence of the covariance matrix.
Yeah.
But Gan uses it, yes.
Yeah, that's why I say it's not really new, but it's new in the context of source separation that I consider here. Okay, but this is actually is not what I want. I just moved from the rank 1 to the one I want. So what I really want is that here you see that it is full rank, but it is too much constraint. It is, you have to know everything, and its contribution of this part and contribution of this part is too much constraint. And what we want is that we want to relax all the constraint, and we want to present Aj as really a full range matrices. Okay, so what it look like? If you consider state of the rank 1, whether rank 1 anaquist or rank 1 convolutive, the spatial covariant matrix is a product of two vectors, so it's a rank 1 matrix. So what I propose in my work is that we propose to present Aj as an arbitrary Hermitian matrix where we release all the constraints. So you see, there over 3 slides. This one is too much constraints. It is a less constraint, we add more. And this one is what we propose here. It's really unconstrained. So we have more parameter to model the reverberation. Okay, so now we already have a Gaussian modeling framework. We have parameterization for the spatial covariant matrix, and it's time to design the source separation architecture. Okay, now look at it. You have observed mixture I sub T. You transform into time frequency domain. You have I sub NF. Given the Gaussian modeling framework, so the parameter you need to estimate is the source variances for each sources and the spatial covariant matrix for each sources J. And once you estimate this one, you can perform multi-channel Wiener filtering to estimate C of J. And then you convert back to time domain to get what we want. Okay, for multi-channel Wiener filtering, okay, we have equation here. If you know Vj and Aj for all time frequency point for all sources J, so so this is simply an equation. But here, let me emphasize that here we assume that the sources is uncorrelated. So we have a covariant matrix of X is the sum of the covariant matrix of each sources. Okay, so this is uncorrelated assumption, which is less than the independencies. So this part, and this part is ready. What we want now is this part, how we estimate Vj and Aj. Okay, this will be our focus. Okay, but before actually estimating this parameter, let me first demonstrate the potential of the proposed framework in the Oracle setting and semi-blend setting. For instance, in the Oracle parameter estimation, all the parameter here is estimated from the known source image. So it means that this sequence provides the upper bounds on the source separation performance, right? If you know everything, so and you can compute parameter, it will show you the upper bound. So I just want to prove that the upper bound on source separation of the proposed framework is higher than the upper bound of the performance of the state of the art approach. So if we succeed in that way, so later on we will manage to estimate the parameter blindly from the mixture. So that is the purpose of this work. And in the semi-bland, we call semi-bland parameterization, it means that we estimate the spatial parameter from the known source images, but we blindly estimate the source variances from the mixture. Okay, so I will skip the detail and present later on, but this parameter is estimated in the maximum likelihood chance using EM, it's expectation-maximization algorithm. And we evaluate the performance, the source separation performance using the well-known criteria like signal to distortion, SDR, and signal to interference ratio or something. Do you familiar with this evaluation metrics?
Between signal to distortion ratio and signal to artifact ratio.
Okay, so for this series of criteria, if you have the estimated signal, so it says that the estimated signal can be factorized by the sum of several components. So you have estimated signal will be the sum of the original signal plus some artifact plus the interference from another sources. Right? So you have several components. So the signal to interference ratio will measure the ratio between the choose source signal and the contribution of another sources, which is in the factorization. And signal to distortion ratio will measure the overall distortion. So it's the ratio of the good original sources to all the another distortion. And the signal to artifact will measure the ratio between the signal and the artifact and the musical noise, for instance. Yeah. So you see that the SDR will measure the overall performance of the system, while this bar will measure the specific application.
So you're trying to estimate the actual signal or a filter version of the signal?
A filter version of the signal, yeah. Okay.
I have a question about the number of parameters here. So there's so for the covariance matrix, it's full rank and fully unconstrained. So it's n squared over 2 parameters for each covariance matrix, right? And then you have that separately for each frequency band.
Okay,
right?
Yeah, okay, I get the idea. I will provide the number later on in my slide. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, yeah, so as I say, this is well known. So here is the results in 2 cases. This is average for 10 speed mixture of 3 sources with the different DOA. And the microphone spacing we use is 20 centimeter, and the distance from the source to the microphone is 1.2 meter. And we compare the results of our proposed full-range unconstrained parameterization with the full-range direct plus diffuse. It's partly new, as I presented before. And we compare with state-of-the-art rank 1 convolutive and rank 1 anechoic model. And we also compare with the 2 baseline approach. This is well known. It's called binary masking and our norm minimization. And here is the results we have. Regarding the question about the number of parameters, so of course you see for the full-range unconstrained, you have much more parameters than another one, right? Because you have 3 parameters for each sources at each time frequency point. So if you multiply by the number of time frequency point and you multiply by the number of sources, 3, you get this total number of parameters need to be estimated. For rank 1 convolutive, which is mostly used, they have a half of parameter because it's rank 1, so there's only 2. And it's very interesting that for rank 1 direct plus diffuse, you have a very little parameter.
Rank 1 would be half. It would be the square root, right? I mean, this is, I think, the 3,000, is that coming from the filter length of the convolutive, the estimation of the convolutive filter? Because I mean, if you have a rank 1 matrix versus a full rank matrix, has the square root the number of parameters, right? Not half. Because rank 1 is just, you know, vector times vector out.
Okay, now you consider the stereo case. So
Yeah.
for
When you say convolutive, is that the number of filter taps that you're estimating for the filter response, or why is it so large?
no, okay. For instance, here I use 1024 taps for the filter.
Okay.
So we need to estimate a positive half of that, right?
Okay.
So it should be 513.
Okay.
It's the number of frequency band,
Okay.
right? So we multiply 513 with the 3 sources, multiply by 3.
Okay.
And it is 2 stereo case. So here we have a 2 by 1 vector for each missing message. So it's 513 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2, and you get this number. Okay. And for the full rank, you get double.
How many microphones?
2 microphones. I use stereo case.
So is this a real recording or it's a simulated?
It is simulated. Yeah.
Using image method.
Yeah. Image
What is
method.
the RT60 of the room simulator?
It is 250. Yeah, it's 300.
So what is the sampling rate for this?
It's 16 kilohertz.
So how long of a reverberation can you handle with 1,000 taps, assuming the limitation of the product?
Okay, so for 16,000, and now you have only 1,000 taps, so it is like 116.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16. Yeah,
Just
16
much
or
less.
16.
87 milliseconds.
Yeah, much less than 250. Okay.
So pretty much your model spans to the moment the reverberation goes down around 20 dB, and that kind of explains especially the best numbers there.
Okay. Again, so I lost something. So if you have, we have 16
16 kilohertz,
Kilohertz,
sampling
sampling rate.
frames. It's a 1/16
Yeah.
of a second, which is 86.66 milliseconds.
Mhm.
This is roughly
Okay,
one
yeah.
third of your RT60,
Okay, yeah, okay.
which is when the reverberation goes down to minus 60 dB.
Okay,
So
yeah,
pretty
sure.
much you're taking a span of the reverberation when it goes down to minus 20.
That is our purpose, because we need to take the very short filter compared to the actual reverberation. If you take it longer, there should be no meaning, right? So
Right.
it is okay.
And then you have a lot more parameters.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I have some English understanding here.
Won't anymore.
Okay, so yeah, here is the results for Oracle. For Oracle, of course, you have a much larger number because everything is estimated from the known sort images, and the separation performance is degree in a semi-blend. But overall, you can see that the proposed full range unconstrained outperform all another please.
So you said that your matrices were number of microphones by number of microphones. So here they're just 2 by 2.
Yeah.
Right. So then the explosion in parameters is very small because n squared is just 4, right?
Mhm.
Like, as opposed to like if you had 10 mics.
Okay.
So I wonder, I'm just wondering, because so could you actually break down the 4617 where those parameters are coming from, where the 4617 parameters are coming from for the full rank case?
For microphone case.
Yeah.
You mean?
For the full. No. Just for your case. I just want to know the breakdown of 4617
Okay.
in terms of where those parameters are coming from.
In terms of a spatial parameter.
Or just what are the 4,000? Because you broke it down for the rank 1 convolutive one. You said 512 tabs times.
Okay. So you want
In this case,
okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
No worries.
So for this one, we also have 513 frequency band,
Okay.
and you also have 3 sources. Okay, let me emphasize that we are focusing on the underdetermined case where we use a smaller number of microphones to separate larger number of sources, which is much more challenging. Yeah, okay. So that's why I use stereo for 3 sources. Okay. So let's come back. You have 513. You multiply by 3, and you multiply by 4 for each point. So you have that. Yeah, but what we really happy and surprising is that for this model, with a very little parameter, but it provides quite good results. It's a bit less than the set of Z here, but it uses very little. Let me explain why it is 8. For instance, if you look at here, so what you need to know is that microphone spacing is one parameter, and you need to know the distance from the source to the microphone. So if you have 2 microphones and 3 sources, you have 6 parameters, right? So you have 6 parameters for the distance, and microphone spacing is 7. And then you need to know a bit about reversion time, and that's it.
So are you estimating the room parameters as well in those figures?
No, for that I assume that it is known. Yeah.
But you couldn't estimate those in principle.
That is one of the future work I would mention. Yeah. It would be nice if we can estimate such kind of parameter and incorporate. Yeah. But at this time, okay, let me first assume that we know.
So actually, if you look at the upper table, the full rank and constraint and the full rank direct by diffuse are fairly close. It's only when you do the estimation that all of them
no. That is really amazing. It means that if we know exactly everything, so this model is quite good to handle the reversion part. Yeah.
I mean, even before you maybe do this future work of trying to estimate those, it might be interesting just to see what the sensitivity of those results would be with respect to small perturbations in the room estimate, right? Because if it's robust to
okay, yeah, I see what you mean. When I presented some conference, some people also asked me about the variation about that. It's quite nice, yeah. But for the short time of my thesis, I haven't got much time to investigate this one. I more investigate this one because in France we get almost 2.5 years for doing research and a half year to write a thesis. So actually for me I have only 2 years to do all the things. Okay. It is shorter than in the US. But yeah, you're right. Okay, let me continue something. So now I proved that for the upper bound on the short separation you have good performance. So let's move to the real parameter estimation.
Are we going to hear some sounds there?
Okay. Okay, nice. Because we have like 15 minutes more. Okay, yeah, nice. Okay, here is just one specific case I did a long time before, but recently I write my thesis, so I test on a very large database, and we get a very similar ones with a different microphone, short to microphone distance, different duration time, and I draw the curve function, and so I get. Okay, for instance, you have mixture.
Among them is too spicy. Building from the
Okay, that is 3 sources. And for the rank 1 convolutive case, instead of jazz, 1 volume.
Among them are canvases by a young artist. Building from the ground up is very costly.
Okay, and in our case, you hear?
Among them are canvases by a young artist. Building from the ground up is very costly.
Okay, again.
Among them are canvases by a young artist. Building from the ground up is very costly.
Okay, yeah, you have more.
Among them are canvases by a young artist. Building from the ground up is very costly.
So in these 2 cases, you have lots of musical noise, right? That is artifact. That's why we use SAR. For you have more this musical noise. Yeah.
So in the Oracle results above, what you mean by Oracle is just the geometry, right?
Oh yeah, it means that we know everything. We know the source.
You know the whole signals.
We know the whole signal. Yeah, browser. Yeah.
Well, if you know the whole signals, it's
This gives you the top of the performance.
It gives the upper bound of the performance. As
if I know the whole signals.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I don't want to play sound here because I know everything. So there's no worth to play the perfect sound here. Yeah. But I just want to prove if the parameter is estimated from the very good. I mean, it's known, so it provides.
And in the lower case, the geometry is known, but not the source images. Right?
Yeah. Okay, so now I
have one question about this.
Okay, please.
your figures of merit, do they depend on frequency as well?
Yeah.
It seemed like for the full rank unconstrained, most of the most of the interference was low frequency.
Yeah.
That there wasn't a lot of leakage from high frequency from the other sources.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why would it? First of all, is that truly happening, and why would that? What's causing that? Why would the low frequency leak more than the high frequencies from the interfering sources?
Of course, for speed sources, most energy of the sources will lie in the low frequency, right? So of course, in the low frequency range, you have more interference. I mean, you can hear more interference, because actually in the mixture itself, it will have more energy lying in the low frequency range, right? And in terms of mathematical things, I don't see the differences in my framework. The differences between the low and the high, because we treat the low and the high equally, and we apply the same parameter estimation for the all frequency bin.
But the interfering sounds for when you played the full rank unconstrained weren't a low volume male speech. It was a muffled male speech where the low frequencies were leaking through.
Mm-hmm.
And so you haven't looked into what could be causing that in your framework, or?
Yes, actually I didn't really look closely inside the speed, the spectral feature. I mean, is that really affect the speed recognition system or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. I will look at more. Or maybe it is just one specific case, because we have three sources and I play only one sources. When you hear another source, maybe differences, or maybe different sources. I don't know. Yeah. But to be honest, I feel it equally treated. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, similar thought. I mean, like, how much is this dependent on the aperture? Maybe you just haven't done this analysis, but like, particular spacing, it's going to make some differences there, right? Like, I mean, you're not going to have the same estimation capabilities for different frequencies given a particular aperture.
Okay.
So you're going to have, I mean, that might be where the limitations are coming from.
Either that or the frame length of the analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, for that frequency resolution, let me present in next slide, because I also have some work on the frequency resolution, where instead of trying a short-term Fourier transform, which provides a linear resolution, I use some more like acoustically motivated representation, which provide more resolution at the low frequency range. So I will present later on in this work. Okay, so let me move. Okay, so now we move to the next part, where I present the general framework to estimate the parameter from the mixture. Okay, here is the structure. I choose expectation-maximization EM, which is well known for the Gaussian mixture model. And for EM, you may know that it's very sensitive to the initialization, so we need to design a good parameter initialization scheme. And in the maximum likelihood sense, since we estimate the parameter independently in each frequency bin, so there may be some permutation problem in the frequency domain. So later on, we need to solve the permutation problem. Okay, so what is new in this framework is that in most signal processing approach, so the input for the parameter estimation is observed mixture signal X. But in our case, we consider the inputs by the empirical mixture covariance sigma of X instead of the signal itself. So I also will explain this one later. But now here we have several blocks like this for the blend parameter estimation. And we also consider the parameter estimation in the maximum posteriori sense, where, okay, here's a mathematical term. And in this case, if we have some prior knowledge about the parameter, so we can estimate the parameter jointly in each frequency bin, so we don't need to solve permutation problem after. Okay, so this is the general block. And in the following, I will present a bit detail in each step. And for these two steps, I just exploit the existing methods. which is not our main contribution, and our main work will focus on these three parts. Okay. So here is the parameter initialization. I mainly designed relying on the work of Winster, presented in Eurosipco, where we choose hierarchical clustering of the mixture at its frequency bin after some phase and amplitude normalization. So for the short of time, let me skip this slide because it is not our main contribution. And it's just for parameter initialization. Okay, I explain more about the empirical mixture covariance. Why we use input is sigma hat of x instead of the signal itself. So, okay, ideally we need to estimate Vj and Aj using this relation, sigma of x. But in practice, sigma x is not observed. What we really observe is empirical mixture covariance, sigma hat of x, and we compute sigma x of hat as the average over the neighboring frequency point, like this one. So, and this one can be interpreted as a quadratic transform. Later on, I will present the results with equivalent rectangular bandwidth. This is more acoustically motivated time frequency representation. And why we want to estimate parameter from sigma x instead of the signal itself? Because compared to x, so sigma x will provide additional information about the interchannel coefficient, and it will take into account the neighboring frequency, as you mentioned before. So we slightly relies on the neighboring frequency point.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
So you're mixing between neighboring channels and neighboring mics here in the installation, you're saying?
No, not channel, but time frequency region only.
No, I understand. But just time frequency regions, not between microphones.
Okay, yeah.
So this is time, and this is frequency. So you get the same frequency being back and one more back.
From
the previous frame you get plus the two neighbor frequencies.
I mean, this is general case. If you set the length of W is 2, so we have 2 by 2. And I test several cases with different lengths of W, and I find 2 by 2 like this provide the best performance. So it's okay. And this one is the main point, and this one will contribute half of that. So you have a shape of filter. Okay. Okay, and here's a general expectation maximization algorithm. It includes E step and M step. And in E step, we try to estimate the multi-channel winner filtering and the estimated covariance for each sources, sigma of j. Okay, I will skip the detail. And for M step, the parameter is iteratively updated, like this one, Vj and Aj. So update of Vj will depend on Aj, and update of Aj will depend on Vj. This is the maximum likelihood sense. And in the maximum posteriori sense, Vj and Aj can be estimated by the cost function, including the contribution of the likelihood and the contribution of the prior, which I will present later on, where I introduce some cherub parameter to take into account.
To estimate both the V's and PRs simultaneously?
Yeah. Because we don't know these two parameters, right? Yeah.
From the same amount of data?
Yeah, from the same amount.
Because the V, in theory, you could learn with a lot more data. You don't need to spatialize it, right?
Yeah, I see. There's many approaches to learn Vj, but to learn Vj, you need to know. I mean, the training data should be close to the actual data, right? But for instance, in short separation context, in general case, when some people go into a room and talk, so you don't really have training data. And also, instead of that, many model for Vj is present. Like you can present Vj as the NMF model or the mixture of some Gaussian, and they will train the Gaussian mixture model to get the estimation of Vj. But here, because my framework is focused on Aj, so we assume that there is no prior information on Vj.
But Vj is a function of N and F, so it's like a ton of parameters, right? And so as long as the address length.
Yeah. I mean, if you do not put any prior information, Yes, it has standard parameter. But if you put some model for Vj, for instance, in ML model, so you have a Vj would be some activation and some pattern, some beam pattern, for instance. So you have less parameter.
Are you doing this optimization separately per frame? Or is this
it is doing separately for its sources at its frequency.
But not each frame, but you're doing this tied across the entire input?
Yeah, because you see here, R will be sum of O frame for Vj. Yeah. Okay, is that okay? Yes. So for permutation problem, let me skip also because I just reproduce the work of Sawada in NTT group in Japan, where he exploit the DOA the source direction to solve permutation problem. Okay, so here is some results we get. So this is the actual results. We also average SDR, which measures the overall distortion over 10 simulated speed mixture. So we compare the result of the full range unconstrained with the rank 1 convolutive case, and the baseline approach is by remasking and L1 norm minimization, because at this time we don't take into account another model like full range direct plus diffuse, because we already proved that it provides a lower upper bound performance. So at this stage of the research, I only consider the full range unconstrained. And here is the results for very low reverberation time of 50 milliseconds. So you will see that for low reverberation time, the rank 1 convolutive and the full range provide approximately the same results, because the reverberation is very low. But as far as we move to the higher reverberated room, so our proposed parameterization will clearly outperform the baseline approach and state of the art.
So is this still the semi-blind scenario where you know the source location?
No, it is really
it's really blind.
Blind.
Are they static source locations or are they moving?
The source location is fixed, but we don't know. Yeah. For instance, now you hear the sounds in 250 milliseconds.
Among the non-translated by a young artist, building from the ground up is very arrogant. Next year will see several more installation.
So for rank 1 and quiz.
This food's too spicy, he complained. Young men can be very arrogant and rude, so Marcus owned a big shipping company.
Okay, for our proposed approach.
This food's too spicy, he complained. Young men can be very arrogant and rude, so Marcus owned a big shipping company.
So
I thought I've heard results for the rank 1 convolutive mixtures that sound better than this.
In terms
other
of
researchers.
In terms of interference or artifact or overall, you hear.
Overall.
Okay, we can hear again, right?
This food's too spicy, he complained. Young men can be very arrogant and rude, so Marcus owned a big shipping company.
Just my recollection of some conference here.
I mean, maybe they weren't in a reverberant room, or?
That's probably the biggest difference, yes.
So which
it depends on how reverberant.
Wait, go back 1 second. So what level of reverberation were you showing those samples at?
2000. I'm sorry, 250.
Okay.
So maybe that's the difference, yes.
No, but even for this one, I test in many cases, the full range clearly better. I don't know.
No, I'm saying that what I've heard in other conferences, the separation was much better, but perhaps it was like much less reverberation. Like maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Because there it looks like they're almost the same.
Yeah, in low reverberation time, it's almost the same or something. But as I said before, our research is targeting design for the reverberated environment.
Compare that with low reverberation times you do as well as others.
Yeah. Or even recently, I test when writing a thesis, I test a larger number of data sets with a different scenario. So at the time, I observed that even the rank 1 perform better at the low reverberation time. Like
in my recollection, it was even better than 10 dB. Maybe 50 milliseconds, it was better than 10 dB. That's my recollection.
70. So slow.
I'm sorry?
70 milliseconds, so slow. This is what they used for when they published their paper.
Like the guys from ATR, like what the demos that I listened to me they sound better than 10 dB. They sound, I know that the reverberation is short.
12 is what they published.
Really? Did you use headphones when you listened to them? Or was it a talk like this?
I've tried both.
Okay, so this is one case.
I have a kind of question for the room. Was it? I'm not familiar with the data you're using for this.
Yeah.
And to me, both examples sounded unintelligible. I was maybe able to pick out 2 or 3 words from either the rank 1 convolutive or the full rank unconstrained. Is that, so it doesn't really seem like the difference is useful at 250. Is this the biggest difference that you see with this technique, or are we going to see better results?
Yes, if you look at the number, you see the differences. But here, as I mentioned, I just play one specific case.
So here I see 2 dB difference at 250 milliseconds.
Okay,
so
yeah, it's just like 1 dB or something.
1 dB.
But
quantitatively, they're different. But qualitatively, I found them to both be unintelligible.
Okay, yeah.
You have some experiments that show there's some domain where you use this technique and there's qualitative results that are positive.
Okay, I saw it later on. But okay, let me emphasize that in a short separation community, 1 dB SDR is really a large improvement. If you look at the performance year after year, so you see that its approach is like 1.3 or 1.5 SDR or something performance. So it's not easy to get like 1 dB.
This is a significant change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me emphasize that this is really a significant change. And in this slide, I saw some more results compared with state-of-the-art approach. So in short separation community, we have a Thesis campaign, which is organized by 1.5 years by the steering committee, which is associated with the short separation conference, which is known as ICA conference. And for this campaign, where the organizer have some common data, and the participant will use their algorithm to separate the file and submit the results so that the organizer will evaluate the performance. So they give the blank data, so all the participants don't know anything, and they give back the wave file, and then the result is evaluated by the organizer. And we participated in the data up to 2008. Actually, recently is 2010 already, and we compare with 4 state-of-the-art approach. Which for instance, hierarchies come from NTT in Japan, which is very well known for short separation, and Mandan come from the Columbia University with Dan Ellis, so very famous, and Izumi also come from Tokyo University. So these all are state-of-the-art approach. And here I test with the 5 microphone spacing data sets, and here is what the results we have with 3 sources and with 2 sources compared to state-of-the-art approach. Yeah.
So that was the best number of all of the entries? You got the best number?
Yeah. I compare to all the number. I mean.
Well, in the 250 millisecond, it looks like the Iraqi method is 3.7 versus your 3.8. I mean, it's quite close, right?
Here?
Iraqi, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't confirm that I'm outperform everything. I mean, it is really hard. And let me also emphasize that it is with 5 centimeter spacing and with more large number of microphone spacing, even Iraqi outperform our methods, because our method we need to solve permutation problem. And if you have large microphone distance, so you have many phase wrapping, so it will degrade a lot of performance. Yeah. So that's why I choose 5 centimeter. Yeah. But solving the permutation is not the main goal of our approach. Right?
So are these are your implementations of their algorithms, or this is what they've published?
Yeah. What's your published? And the data is tested and submitted themselves, not mine. I mean, we all submitted to the same organizer, so that's nothing. And actually, recently, we were in 2010, I also attend And I didn't write results here, but let me summarize. In 2010, the group of entities, Sawada, outperformed another one. And there is two other people outperform this method, one from EPFR of Switzerland, and one is Alexei. But these two other people use our framework. It means that he used exactly the full range I proposed here in 2009, but he adds more constraint on the source variances. So here, the source variant Vijay is free, right? I don't use any model for Vijay. But for those two approach, they add the NRF model for Vijay and the Gaussian mixture model for Vijay, and they get better performance. So it's usual. Yeah. Okay.
So one other question. You may have said this before, but like, so in all these cases, the number of sources is known, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It's always specified.
Yeah. For estimating the number of sources, it still remains challenging, I think.
But in all these experiments,
it's known. Yeah. Okay. So regarding the question about the frequency resolution before, I test between the short-term Fourier representation where the frequency bandwidth is linearly equal for all frequency range. And if you apply ERB, which is more acoustically motivated, it will provide a narrower band at the low frequency range where most sound energy lie in. And our results show that the ERB will perform better performance than the short-term Fourier transform. Why we have this? Because the difficulty of estimating the model parameter is that we have a lot of time frequency overlap between sources. I mean, if the sources is really sparse in the time frequency region, it is easier to estimate the parameter, right? But if it's really overlap, so it is more difficult to estimate the model parameter. But if we use ERB, we have a narrower band at the low frequency range, so we have a less overlap, right? Yeah, that's why it outperform the short-term Fourier transform. And this result is what published in our ICA paper in 2010. Okay, that is briefly. And now is for short time I'll move quickly to also a good contribution of the paper is defining some probabilities prior. Up to now, I just present general framework, and the parameter is estimated in the maximum likelihood sense without knowing anything, right? But in practice, in many cases, for instance, if you look at the speed enhancement in a car, you may know exactly the position of the driver and co-driver. Or in a formal meeting room, the position of each delegate is fixed. It means that in such situation, the geometry setting is known, so that you can exploit this knowledge in order to enhance source separation. So for that motivation, we design the spatial location prior. Okay, let me also consider another one. So up to now, I just assume that Aj of F is time invariant. But if you consider the moving sources, for instance, if I talk like this, I keep moving. Or if you consider the drum, so there are several drums like a hi-hat and snare, so that the Aj should not be time invariant, right? So in that time, we should consider time varying spatial position of the sources, but we can design some continuity prior. It means that we assume that it's time varying, but it should have some structure over time. So that's why we also design some spatial continuity prior for that. And these two different prior is published in two different ICAS papers this year. Okay, or if you look at spectral information of the sources, for instance, if you look at spectrum of the drum, it is quite smoothly over time. While if you look at a spectrum of harmonics or piano, for instance, it is quite harmonicity and smooth over frequency range. Given that, you can also design some spectral continuity prior to enforce the smoothness over time of frequency range. So this is a series of prior information we consider in order to enhance source separation in specific setting where we know something. Okay, a bit detail about spatial prior. So here is the model you have seen before, the full range direct plus diffuse. But this model we test with large data, and we found that it's quite good in terms of the approximation for the mean of the spatial covariant matches. It means that if you have a lot of position of the sources, so the mean can follow this one. But in practice, it will vary over the mean, right? That's why we can define some distribution of Rj by the inverse Wissart prior, where the mean of Rj is defined by this, and we need to estimate or to learn the variance so that we know the distribution and we can estimate the parameter in the maximum likelihood, maximum posteriori sense, right? Okay, let me go a little bit faster and just give you a basic idea. And also we get the closed form update in MapSense. Okay, and here is some results. Here I just want to show that if we know some knowledge about the geometry setting, we can get the better performance compared to the blend initialization in a maximum likelihood sense, right? Okay. Okay, for spatial continuity prior, we consider this prior in the context of musical short separation, where the music will, okay, and we also define some probability distribution of Rj. So the mean at the current time frame will depends on the value at the previous time frame. So we have a continuity constraint. Okay, so now I come back with experience to show some practical where our framework is shown to provide good performance. For instance, if you look at music mixture, so it can be considered as a mixture of harmonic component and percussive component and drum. And in the mere community, people try to separate harmonic component and drum component in order to perform some other music information retriever. And we apply our framework with the continuity prior. So we get the results for multichannel harmonic and percussive short separation. And we compare this result with the existing single channel SPSS, which is proposed by the group in the University of Tokyo. Okay, and here is the results we get. Here is for example, one music mixture. Okay, so here is a harmonic component we separate. Ooh. Here's percussive component. Okay, if you compare with state of the art for percussive, you will hear is. So, do you feel differences now? Yeah, because the last question is, yeah, I agree for speed is difficult, but yeah, I have some co-work with a group of University of Tokyo, where we try to explore this framework in the context of music information retriever. Yeah. So here, instead of the art, you can hear a lot of artifact. So the drum is much distorted. You may not hear the actual drum I play again.
Might not be the important thing. Right? Like, I mean, if the goal is that you're trying to find features for mere kind of stuff, you might care about tempo and like, you know, which drums are being played when and stuff like that. The actual acoustic artifacts are more if humans are listening to the output.
Okay.
I guess another question I have though is that, like, so in this case, so how are you? So are you manually defining what the priors are for the different types of sources here, or are you estimating them from data, or where are they coming from?
So for the prior, there is only two parameters. One is mean and one is variant. Sure. So for mean is okay, it's well defined, and for variant I manually chosen. But I observed that the result is not very sensitive to the two of the variant.
But one is thin, but one is broad. Yeah, sure.
So for instance, you can vary is between 10 or 100 is okay. But of course, it's okay. You can learn from the training data. Yeah.
And the source is what? A regular stereo recording?
Stereo recording, yeah.
Stereo or monophonic? It's a single channel.
Yeah, for single channel, we separate the source in each stereo channel separately.
So you did, like, you took one of the stereo channels and then for these results?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is not a fair comparison, I would say, because I compare the multi-channel.
One is a single channel, the one is two channels, just one channel.
So I say it's not fair, but for state-of-the-art approach, I didn't find any multi-channel approach, because for music source separation, most people use single channel and they exploit the model for the spatial temporal of the sources in order to separate, like, So yeah, I tried to look for state of the multi-channel, but I didn't see the one. Okay, so here is a roughly conclusion. So in this work, we introduce probabilistic space model for the reverberation and diffuse sources. And we propose the unconstrained parameterization of the spatial covariant matrix, which overcomes the narrowband assumption to a certain extent, and which better account for the reverberation as shown in the experimental results. We also consider the use of the local empirical covariant for the parameterization. It's a sigma head of X, which provide additional information. And recently, we propose several probabilities prior, which have enhanced source separation in a certain context where we know some information. Yeah. Okay, for the future works, we can consider the work towards blend source separation, exploit the spatial location prior. It is very related to the question before about the full range detect plus diffuse model. And even for this prior, we need to know the mean. It means that we need to know that matrices. And if we can find a way to estimate the parameter, like estimate the source DOA and duration time, it is good practice. And we can consider the use of the proposed framework in another field of signal processing. For instance, in MIR, that is what we are doing now. And recently, I found that there are some people already use our framework. For instance, Hitachi, Togami in Hitachi use our modeling in their acoustic echo cancellation system. And Araki also combine our approach with time frequency masking, so to enhance source separation.
Is the Shopus ICAS 2011 paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because these two guys from industry, so they consider the practical application. So Soko use the ID, but he do not use the same estimation technique because ours require more time. So Soko combine with their approach and use a shorter, faster estimation parameter. Yeah, and we also can consider the proposed framework in spatial audio, where we analyze and rendering the spatial sounds. Yeah. Okay, and I think that is end of my presentation. And here is some references you can find. It is described.
More questions?
So thank you for the attention.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the attention. Yeah.